We need bleachers.
Oh, my goodness. I'm gonna have to open up.
Okay, we have a quorum. This is a special meeting of the CEA Board of Directors. We have a short agenda today. We want to talk first of all about our open seat for an associate member. And
Rich,
we're
I'm
gonna-
gonna stop you for a second because
Yep.
we're muted and
Oh.
when I unmute, we're getting a lot of feedback and I don't want to miss any of the meetings. So one moment.
Okay.
Okay, come on in. Get some lunch here.
Hi.
Hey, Ming, how are you?
How are you?
Very good. You want my chair?
Good, listen to you.
Okay, good. Thank
What, my
you. Oh, you brought your fan club? Yeah, my fan club.
Well, there should be some chairs.
We can try.
Oh, Eleanor.
Well, there's still some gentlemen.
Gentlemen. Yeah, you know why? There he is.
No idea.
Oh, running late.
3 months. Oh, all the people are so nice.
Oh, yeah.
Come on.
Bringing their own chairs, awesome.
That's all right, you are.
Remove
Strong
the-
guys. They're all coming.
This is kind of interesting. We don't have to say a word.
Rich just said maybe we should disperse in the room. But we're not.
No, you're fine. Yes, you're well. You're right.
Nice to see you.
What are you gonna do about it?
Oh, God.
These Why don't we go?
Oh, that's fine.
Do I? Well,
Yeah, I know, I'm leaving.
yeah.
I am behind you.
Okay.
We keep moving around.
Where's Crofton? That's off the old people.
It's in the other room. Right?
You can go get
I lose my seat.
Yeah, you probably would.
What's it's legal? Of course it's legal. No, I mean, having so many.
Oh,
Could open the
fire.
All right, they're out in the corridor. One of the questions is. Yeah, we can open those doors.
What about those? Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Yes?
Oh, they're closed there. I think there's an exercise
Oh,
class.
we're in the.
I love it. Check and see, Paul. I don't think.
Looks okay. Good, 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 good.
I asked Chris to sit here, but he didn't want to. Okay.
Stand.
Are we all set? Okay. Well, welcome, everybody. I think this is the largest session we've ever had. Perfect. We've changed our format a bit in that we're gonna have first 10 minutes for open comments from anyone. Anyone raise their hand, like to have the floor? Okay.
Somebody has to start.
Well, it seems a bit awkward without Chris here. I understand he's expected. Is that true?
behind
Oh, he is
Man
here.
behind you.
Yeah.
Chris, you're perfectly welcome to attend.
Seats are for folks who deserve them. I'm gonna stand. Sorry.
Okay. Well, you're on the agenda, so why don't you start?
But we're gonna go to the open seat first.
Oh, we could.
Yeah.
All right. As you know, we do have an open seat. There was some confusion. David Bigley has applied to be our additional associate member. He's going to be vetted at the select board on the 20th and then hopefully join us for the September meeting. Does everybody know David?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Everybody fine with David joining us?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
We'd be lucky to have him.
I think so. He's an extensive user of this
It's been
place, so
around
that's
forever.
terrific.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So he's filling a vacant seat that expires in 2025,
okay.
and that'll be in front of the Board of Selectmen on their next meeting for approval.
Any more comments on David?
He brings a wealth of enthusiasm as well as knowledge of the whole town and everything's going on.
He asked a couple of years ago and we didn't have an open seat at the time. Actually, Marcia took the open seat at the time. So, good. No, that's good. Glad to have you, Marcia. Okay, anything else on the open seat? So that'd bring us back to 3 associate members. Okay, now we can move on to our conversation on our section 4. Want to lead that, Paul? Want to lead the discussion?
If I may, Mr. Chair. If I may, I am actually very excited to be here today. By the way, that this is what Wilka Commons is about. That was the vision when I got it. This building didn't exist when I got it. So it was a great vision. And I come from a community that had transformed its entire model of working with folks, aging the community to an aging in place program. Now, Cohasset's already had an amazing aging in place program. It's a beautiful small town. There have all kinds of great programs, but there was no real center of it. The South Shore Community Center was a home, but it was very small and it was their building. And there was I wasn't here for, why don't you come in and I'll come in. If you don't mind, I'm gonna sneak in behind you folks over here. Ugh, and I'm afraid I don't have a microphone, so I apologize. I'll do the best I can to project. So it was exciting to come here and I remember being showed the plans and the building still hadn't been built, right? And I know that had been a long process and then I got to be involved in the actual acquisition of this building, and that was a challenge. There was a lot of emotion around that. A lot of people had strong opinions that did not agree with each other. I went to select board meetings where there was a lot of intense conversations. In fact, the select board member even resigned during the process. And the good news is that through all of that, through that emotion, the vision was, the North Star that I saw was that this building was critically important. Getting it into the community's hands was critically important. That's what most people felt. And the process itself, as convoluted as it got very convoluted. The goal was, let's get the building. And we did. It's exciting, right? And the relationship with the Social Service League was a little bit tattered. And I thought, we got to keep that. That's a critically important relationship. And we still have it. And they're part of this building and they're part of the efforts that go on every day. And it's very exciting. And here we are. It's about 8 years later, I think now, right? Hard to believe, time flies. And this building has seen so many amazing things. Just today, just morning coffee. That alone on Mondays, super important. There's also incredible things that people don't see that go on, which help people stay in their homes. There's people who never come in this building who are supported by the mission that Cohasset has made its own. It's an incredibly exciting mission. And this board is also incredibly important to them. And if you look at the town's bylaws, which is what governs all of this, right? The mission of this board, and it's the entire mission, is to create and support programs. That's the mission. There's no other bylaws, there's no other powers. It's that. And by the way, that's the heart of it, right? Creating programs, supporting programs, becoming a force for energy and to make sure that the outreach is really the best. And it's different. It changes. Remember, during the pandemic, everything we did changed. That said, it worked. We made it work. And coming out of the pandemic, things have changed. And things will continue to change because the worlds are changing around us. And people's needs are changing. That said, the most important thing in this place is the caring and the concern and the feeling of family. And I want to underscore something. None of that's changing. I don't want any of that to change. I want it to get better and stronger. And there's been an unfortunate message going out that somehow it's changing and it's being ripped away, and it's not. So I want to double down right now. I am not making I don't want the caring to change. I want it to be stronger and better. The feeling of family, the feeling of passion. I'm not looking to change any programs. So anyone who's telling you those things is just not true. And I'm sorry that people have been saying that and feeling that, but it's just not true. In fact, all the staff that are here are critically important, and I want them to keep doing their jobs that they're doing so well and so passionately, whether it's a morning cafe or a great meal or Meals on Wheels or all of the dozens and dozens of programs that happen. We have a really great staff. We've had some turnover. We'll talk about that in a second. And I think it's really important. I want you to understand, no one's going anywhere. We're not changing anything. In fact, we're doubling down on what's here. I want to, people are doing some really good work, and I want them to be able to do even more of that great work with more support, more energy. So that's another thing. Okay, nothing's changing. No one's taking away anything. I don't want anyone to think that. No one's taking anything away. The last thing I want to do is give the impression that we're taking something away, because that's not what I want to happen here. Nothing's being taken away. Now, at the same time, I have to acknowledge that we've gone through a moment of I guess a little bit of pain and a little bit of loss and uncertainty, because the prior director, wonderful person, okay, respected deeply, Nancy LaFosse, went, I had to take some leave, and then ended up leaving, and it wasn't planned. And I know she's in my prayers every day. I'm sure she's in all of yours too. And she was a really well liked, and she had a great vision. The great things she did, right? She cared so deeply about everybody, and the aging in place, and the age and dementia friendly, and getting the senior center certified. All those things were Nancy's vision, and she really worked really hard with folks to get there. And it was hard. It was hard for all of us, because there was just this great degree of uncertainty for her and for all of us. And we went through this great degree of uncertainty, and I'm sorry about that. And I'm sorry for her, most important, right? And she went through a really challenging moment, and put everyone else through it too. And I understand the feeling of, we don't want to lose, and I understand that. And nobody wanted her to go anywhere. I had hoped she'd be here for a really long time. And I remember hiring her, right? I remember the conversations about hiring her when the prior director before her left. And we went through a process, and Nancy was the right person, and she did a great job. And again, I think we'd all like her to still be. And unfortunately, life happens. And again, we'll continue to pray for her, and we'll continue to hope for her. And that meant we had to start looking about what happened next. And the most important thing, I think, for all of us, and as I sat with Megan, who, part of her job is to work with all the folks in this community services universe, which is Elder Affairs and the Veterans Agent, and Safe Harbor, and Recreation and Library, and help them kind of collaborate. We've done so much more collaboration over the last 5-6 years. It's really great, because every department's not a silo. We all serve the same people, just in different ways. The library and Veterans Affairs and Elder Affairs and all of that. We serve different people, the same people in different ways. And it's been exciting to see these great programs. And so we want to keep all that going. And the staff, by the way, people in the right places, people are doing some really great stuff. We want to continue to support them and encourage them. So what do we do? So we look and we go out and we try to find someone who's going to continue that energy and maybe bring something new. Because one of the things that I think there's no question about is that people are living longer lives. It's amazing, right? And with that has come more challenges in the world of healthcare and the support and we need to have more support in that, more knowledge in that. And we went out and we looked, and quite frankly, we saw some really exciting. Again, I want to be clear, I'm not going to talk about any individuals today. It's not appropriate or reasonable to start talking about individuals. People do passionate, wonderful jobs, and I believe I know how much I feel here, and I don't want to. It's great to praise people. It's also, I don't want to start doing that. We can't go down into this person. Let's talk about themes, and then again, people who've left. Again, Nancy was an example. So we went out and we gauged input, and we polled this board and talked to staff, and it was about vision, and looked at the reports that have been done, and went out and saw what was out there, and there's a growing elder care, healthcare world too, right? And penetrating. So I'm going through this with my own family. My dad is now in a nursing home after a long period. It's been hard on my mom and him and all of us. And it was just the right time, unfortunately. A couple of broken hips, and and he's 90. He's won the race.
I think most of us are here to really be supporters of Diane.
I understand, but I want to.
want to get to the point.
So the point that I want you to
This is taking a
understand,
long time.
I want you to understand that this is, that we're not going to be talking about individuals today. That's the
Oh, yes,
problem, right?
we are.
No, see.
Yes, we are.
I want you
Yes,
to.
we are.
How long as you want, Chris, and we are.
I think I also need to turn this back, right? So this board's priority, this board's sole mission is programming. There's nothing in the bylaws about hiring or firing or any of
Yes,
this.
there is, sorry.
No, there,
I read 'em.
excuse me, Diane, I'm sorry. I love the work you do, but unfortunately on this, I've talked to folks more than once that the bylaws that you folks have adopted, and you've given yourself your own special powers. You can't do that.
Well,
Committees can't assign, excuse me. Committees can't assign themselves their own powers. Excuse me for just a second, Diane. Let me, you're more than welcome to question me as much as you want, but please let me speak. The board can't, no board can assign itself its own powers. You simply can't do that. And when boards start to do that, when they start to slip away from their mission, nothing good comes of it. I'm not saying there's any bad intent. I'm not saying that at all.
This is a democratic meeting. You have to take the time to listen to other.
And I will, but I
Filibuster.
want you to understand something. This is a public meeting too, but we have to be careful about individuals and dragging individuals into this, because that's not appropriate. It's not appropriate. And in the
In your
Massachusetts
mind.
world, no, in the law, sir, we can't take employees and hold them up in public meetings. That is completely inappropriate and it's illegal. And it puts the town at risk. I'm sorry. The town for a
Can
long
you
time.
take
didn't
it
do
down a
things.
notch, Chris? It's
Yeah.
getting really
I'm
loud.
sorry, I apologize. I'm trying to keep the volume up and not so I apologize if I'm coming on hot. That's not what I want to do.
You're
Okay.
heading, you're
So what I
talking
wanna
about the
say-
vision that you have, and that was
No,
your
no,
point
no.
to hiring this person, but your vision is not the vision
I want you,
that we have.
I want you to
outlined.
understand. This board came out and said, no process. We don't want a process. We want a result.
I question that,
You
first
said
of
you
all.
wanted a result.
I never said
I'm
that.
not sure. Your letter said that. Your unified letter said, just do this. Don't do a process.
Susan, could you lower your voice?
I'm
a
sorry.
bit?
I want to make sure, I want to make sure, no, I want to make sure people can hear.
Entirely too aggressive.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Well, I'd like to.
So what I want.
Paul would like to say. a
Yeah,
few
I
words.
So just to give everybody some background. The Elder Affairs Board is set up under Mass General Law 40, Section 8, in which it states that a town sets up a Elder Affairs Board. And it details the process of putting in programming. And it also states that they may hire employees and staff to help build elder affairs. That's in the chapter. It doesn't say shall, it says may.
And in the town's bylaws, it doesn't say that.
Right,
In fact, the town's laws, the town's state statute puts hiring authority for certain positions in a joint way with the town manager and the select board. And for every other position, including director of elder affairs, is in the town manager's jurisdiction. That's how
right.
it's set up.
So
There's a lot of committees that have staff that work with them. And always collaborate, always get input, but they don't hire them. They don't hire them.
So here's where the disconnect is. That's what our mass law chapter is, right? And that's what it states that we're allowed to do. And in the history of the town of Cohasset, this board, consisting of 12 people, 9 voting members and 3 associate members, have always helped in the interview process and helped in the selection process and vetted who we felt were the best type of person that we needed to fill a particular job here, whether it be on the board or staff or volunteer areas. And we've always worked with the town manager's office to help in that selection process. I think what people are most upset about is that in addition to that, there was also a subcommittee set up by the HR department.
If I may, Paul.
Yeah.
There was a process that included many aspects. No one aspect of that process was predominant of the others. I want to be clear about that.
Right, no.
So
Yeah.
to cherry pick individual pieces, I think sets a false narrative. And to select, to pull that out, I think is a completely misrepresents and gives people a false impression. And if to continue down that path of cherry picking, Paul, is disingenuous. And I think it's damaging to this board and to the entire process. So I'm gonna tell you that.
Okay,
And again, you can do what you want, but I'm telling you that there was a process. And even though the board said outcome only, we still reached out. Megan did a great poll. And by the way, I appreciate all of the input. You give great input on vision and thoughts. And so we did the same thing with the other staff, not about people, but about thoughts about where we're gonna go. And Megan's here to talk about some of that if you like.
okay.
So I just want to say that there's no one element was predominant, except again, have to make a decision, right?
So we, So the town managers-
I'd like to see you go through the process, Paul.
yeah, so.
But again,
step
Paul wasn't
one.
part of the entire process.
Yes, he was.
He was not, respectfully.
I know that.
The only person that was all the way through the process, the person sitting to your left, Megan James, the town's director. of
I know
Human
that.
Resources.
And I would like to speak to that issue. First of all, I have seen the process. I think the board members all saw the process because Paul sent it to us when we asked for it. The first in the process is there's a job description. Tweaked by the HR department is what was said the other night at the selectmen's board. The job description was totally inappropriate to this position. It did not ask for experience in a senior center. Now, who would not ask for someone who had worked in a senior center to be director of a center? That's the first thing that jumped out at me. It asked for executive experience in human services, but nothing about senior centers. The second thing that I thought was blaringly missing from the job posting was that this did not request experience in budgeting, grant writing, knowledge of state regulations that are related to senior centers. I mean, this is just not a job that you and I can walk into. Even if I've been on the board 10 years, I could not do this job. Person they're looking for should have had experience. They were not looking for someone with appropriate experience. That was the first mistake, in my opinion. And then I'll bring up the question that Chris just raised. The board submitted their vision statements. We received an email from an unknown source asking a series of questions of the board. When I got it, my reaction was, is this a scam or what is this? Where did this come from? It came in the middle of the interview process. I decided, all right, I'm going to answer these questions. It probably has something to do with this. We had answered those questions for the last 2 years when we did our accreditation process, but answered the questions. We never were told where this came from. We never saw the results of that review. It was never discussed for the board. To me, and then for you to say, you took our vision and mission statements and said, and what you did was use, in my opinion, you used them to grade the candidates. And I think it was totally inappropriate. I feel like I was totally blindsided by that.
And the vision of someday having adult daycare is pie in the sky. We can't even fund a town hall. We can't fund roads and sidewalks. We can't fund schools. And to say that we're gonna add on to this building and do adult daycare, which is what you hang your hat on with this hire, is ridiculous.
Respectfully, if I may,
I just,
and I'm happy to stop if you want me to stop.
I'd just like to respond to the email. So the unknown source was me, with my email signature. And there was a link in the email to a survey.
Which
Um,
I couldn't even do.
Right, and we worked together so that you could, right? We got a paper copy
We
for,
worked together.
yes, we did. I got you a paper
You got me a
copy
paper
and I
copy.
left it here for you so you could fill it out and you delivered it to the HR mailbox. So we were able.
But
to
I
make sure
agree
that that
with
gets done.
Taffy, it wasn't done correctly. It wasn't kosher.
So the feedback I received at the time is that people really appreciated it and liked it. So I'm sorry
Yeah,
that
I
wasn't
didn't.
the
I was
truth. but
totally
that's the
blindsided.
feedback that I got.
Like it.
I hate.
Yeah.
I didn't appreciate.
Well, I wish that feedback had reached me sooner, if that's the case, but.
You know what it did for me? It questioned me whether the person that was sending it was qualified to send it.
Okay. Why?
Yeah, I didn't know. I really did not know where it came from. I should have looked back more, but I thought, and it was,
Yep.
you know, it was a slanted survey. What do you think of this, this and this? Did ask for opinions and that's where this adult daycare came up, but right, we just spent 2 years doing this, doing our vision and mission for this place. And it got a great review. And I think that if that's what the hiring committee wanted to see, they should have looked at that.
I think the other thing, let me catch my thought. It continued, Taffy.
No, I'll
come back
on that. and that aspect of it. I think that the process, and then going on from there, I don't have complaints about how it was handled, about the interview process.
Yeah, so the board had their input as to a candidate selection. The town manager of the HR department set up a committee of 5 people to review candidates that applied online and submitted their applications. And so there were 5 people, including myself, on that board. We had 3 candidates that applied. We interviewed all 3 people. We kind of deliberated as to which candidates, you know, had strong areas and strong and whatever their weaknesses might be, excuse me. And so we went through that whole process, and it was a couple of days. We had interviewed 2 people on a Wednesday and 1 person on a Thursday. So we all discussed different aspects of strengths and weaknesses, right? So we all have them. And a question is, are some areas of weakness something that we could do, have as a person in the position, and then be able to train them to be stronger in those areas? So those are things that we discussed. That committee made a decision and selected a candidate and forwarded that information off to the town manager. Now, the town manager had taken the final 2 candidates, the top 2 candidates that were selected.
One
And-
dropped out.
And he interviewed them directly himself. And as the town bylaws are, and the town manager act is that the town manager makes the final decision on who he wants to hire in the town of Cohasset, less police and fire. So that's his privilege. He exercised that privilege. And what we're really here for today is we were optimistic a few weeks ago about seeing if he would change his mind. He felt that his particular vision on where the Elder Affairs Department is today, knowing that more Health and Human Services are what's going to be needed in the future as far as programming goes, he felt that he wanted to get a stronger person in the area of Health and Human Services. So that was his decision. What we're trying to figure out and what we want to remedy to is how this particular process was applied to this department, and perhaps may not have applied to other departments. And we want to remedy to having a single source, 1 person unanimous vote, deciding on what we feel is critical, which is the director of Cohasset Elder Affairs. So those are remedies that we can seek. Those would take time to be able to come to a resolution on. But for the Cohasset Elder Affairs Board not to have a voice in this process, which we did have a voice. He heard what we had to say, but he had decided that this Health and Human Service area candidate was stronger and would help the senior center in the future. So we have to understand that if there's a defined process, that it applies to all departments when picking a department head or a director for the town. In the town of Cohasset, there's probably 6 or 8 directors or department heads, right? So those are key people. They have employees that directly report to them every day, and they make decisions every day based on the task at hand. So they're self-governed under the guidance of the town manager. So I think that's a very, very important role. And I think that here at Elder Affairs, we're in our own facility, just like police and fire are in their own facilities, library and rec. So I think that we should, as a board and as a community, have a louder voice, or at least a defined position when coming to choose someone for Elder Affairs. So that's something I would like us to work on moving forward. I don't believe at this point that there's an opportunity to change the decision that the town manager has made. We're in a situation where we have a young woman who came into this clean, and She applied for the job, interviewed for the job, and was offered the job and accepted the job. And we have an employee here who has been here for 5 years, has experience, and had applied for the job but did not get the job. And that happens at a lot of companies. So it's an uncomfortable situation for sure, but it's not a situation that you can't overcome. So I think in this situation, we have to understand that there has to be some sort of reconciliation for us here, all of us seniors here, on this facility, the employees that are here. Yes.
I'd like to know if it's a possibility for everyone to vote. Would that, you can tell from the presence of the folks here that there's concern and active interest.
So,
It's not possible for us to indicate our preference.
right. So unfortunately, there isn't an opportunity to do that.
Why is that?
So the town bylaws allow the town manager to select employees.
How are the town bylaws stipulated and why is it eternal? That it cannot be touched?
So
Aren't we
you-
a democracy?
Right, so in order to change the town bylaws, you have to get a group of people together to craft an article and have it published in the warrant, and the town would vote on changing the town bylaws. So that's a process that
Can we
takes time.
ask for a show of hands of how many people might be interested in approaching that?
We can do that. So would anyone like to assist me in putting together a resolution or a remedy towards selecting a department head for the Cohasset Elder Affairs? Okay. Thank you. We'll put something together in the next couple of weeks to see what we can do to remedy that. But I think what I want to do over the next 6 to 8 weeks is really make sure that our assistant director, who is also outreach, who is the best at outreach, she wears her advocacy on her sleeve. There's no doubt in my mind. To make sure that she continues getting the support that she needs. The new director that comes on board needs to have that same level of support, that same level of welcome. And she has 3 children. I'm not going to guess her age. She's younger than I am. And
Everybody here.
so
Younger than our children.
her husband's a army veteran
You
as
don't
well.
have to bring that up.
Sorry.
You know, so she's here. She's here to help grow her family, just like all of us, and enjoy the community. And at this point, like I said, our angst really is with the process and how we feel we didn't get a fair shake in that process.
Right.
So I think that's the remedy that we need to work on. So I think between now and October, we can come up with what we feel is a remedy for us. You know, how can we have more input?
Yeah.
How can that input have weight? Right now, we have the input, but we don't have the weight, right? So we need to get that weighted. And there's ways to do that, and we can work with the select board to try and get that weighted for us. Because there's no doubt, Chris Senior is right. The future for us here at the senior center is Health and Human Services, right? We have a lot of fun and games here. We have a lot of exercise here. So what we need now is that Health and Human Service side of it, right? We need more outreach. We need a full-time social worker. We need people going out to the community to help people who can't come here, who don't want to come here. My mother's name's on the wall in there. I can't get her to come here. Min comes here. So we've got to figure that part of it out. And quite honestly, this is what's going to be the role of the new director, is to help define that. How can we do that better? And maybe that experience that she has in all of these healthcare facilities and outpatient facilities, maybe that's the tool that helps us. So I think right now for us, oh, sorry. So for right now, I think that's what our goal should be, unless anyone has any other input.
I just have a couple questions to Chris Senior. In this and to Megan. has anybody, this Health and Human Services mission, et cetera, it's not what was originally planned. Has the health board been consulted about this? Do we have, I mean, or is this going to be a decision made outside of their purview too?
So, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, so we talked about the Health and Human Services side of it. In fact, the Social Services League put it into the deed restriction where the nurse and the Veterans Affairs Director can be here as well. When we first opened this facility, we talked about this 8 years ago, about getting the town nurse here more often, and having the Veterans Affairs Director here more often, right? So that we can have more health and human services. Now, Health and Human Services is a large, very large umbrella that a lot of things fall under. Police and fire handle a lot of it. But what's missing is the social worker side of it, the outreach side of it. Those services have to come to the forefront for us here because Social Security changes all the time. Healthcare changes all the time. Where can I go to get this? Where can I go to get that? All of those issues are hard to do on your own. And sometimes you can't wait for your son-in-law to help you. And so our social service workers here, that's what's really needed. We need to have people here that are going to be going out into the community, meeting with these folks and coming back with whatever those issues are. It's a huge, huge thing for us because that's the one thing that we don't have. We have identified, I think at one point we had 22 people on the list that needed help all the time that we would go out to their homes and go see. And you can't do that with somebody just 15 hours a week. So I think that's where that comes from.
I understand that, but then why don't we have more social workers? It's Social Service League pays for the social worker here now, and that's temporary. I mean, that's not ongoing.
Right.
It's not there. But we don't have it from the town. We don't have it from the health division. I'm just saying that this just seems like a red herring.
Well, if I may just follow up, and again, I'm sorry that all this is not super widely known. So we're in a tri-town health grant with Situate and Hingham. And one of the staff members is a full-time social worker. And then there's now another addition being made because all of us are facing the same challenges, right? People are getting older and there's other challenges that come, with we want people to stay in their homes, right? My parents, my mom wants to stay in her home and I want her to be able to. If I was closer, I'd be there more often. That said, I have other family and she's there. Her church is there. Her friends are there. The place she goes shopping is there. Everybody feels that way. And we want to be able to help people with that. So the health, we work real hard to get a tri-town health grant together. And we're collaborating across the borders on these issues. And one of them, Tana, is social. And I think that's going to continue to grow. Now that's beyond, that's not just for people who are, older. That's for, because we have other health issues.
Okay, that's the question. Chris, I'm sorry to bring that tri-town social worker, I believe, works with people under 60.
Well, it's not just under, it's anyone.
Well, that's the impression that we have.
It is under
It's under 60.
Yes.
So that is an area that we've talked about having to expand. I mean, in fact, I've had conversations when the Social Service League stepped up. It was great, and I really appreciate their partnership. And I think it's something that we really need to look more at. I think your point is well, both of your points are well taken. There's the issues. We can go down a deep rabbit hole of that issues. That said, we know this is a very, very individual ones that take lots of attention. It's more general. It's just helping people navigate the challenges of loss and change. And we're going to have to change how we do things. I mean, I bet it doesn't mean replacing things, right? We're not gonna. The cafes, the meals, those are all super critically important. That said, I think as Paul points out, there's going to be other things that we need to be able to do. And I don't even know, I'm not going to pretend that I know them any more than any of us know exactly what those are. But we have to be open to them and open to figuring out how to do them. And by the way, in a collaborative way, we're not going to build our own health centers here. We're 8,300 people. It's a gorgeous place, but we're not going to set up our own. So we need to collaborate across the borders too. And we're building those relationships every day, more and more, to find ways that we can share resources.
I could add to that too. So I hear what you're saying about the social worker, and we are taking a look at the budget to look at, like we just funded the kitchen coordinator that was maybe supposed to be coming out of the formula grant, but was funded this year. So we're looking at ways that we can incorporate some more assistance to the social work.
I have a question for you, and it's bothering me a lot. In fact, it's the main reason I'm sitting here. You have the right to hire, fire, do whatever. What my personal opinion is of who you hire is not, it's just my personal opinion. It has nothing to do with everything else that you're talking about. But what's really bothering me is that you did all this interviewing. You did what you felt was right. You brought somebody on that you liked their vision or you liked what they have. They have a lot of minuses. They are a short-term person. They only seem to last 2 years in a job. They've done only inpatient. They've done no social work at all. They have done health and human services. There are many things, but I think the basic thing is that's concerning me is that you took all this into effect and liked this person and had reasons why you did it. You left out one step. Why didn't you come back to the board and say, I found somebody that I really like. This is why I like them. I realize that you're a strong board. I realize that you're concerned. So here's where I'd like to lay it out. You could avoid this meeting today by have done that.
And I appreciate that. And again, I am more than willing to admit if I do something wrong, and if I don't engage people, right? I'm a human being, right? I most certainly am imperfect. I will tell you that I have met with you folks before, right? When we talked about the use of the building, I've come right in and we talked frankly and talked about how ensuring that elder programs our priorities are remain at the same time. If there's a large community meeting, it's the only place we can hold it in that room. We'll try to find an alternative site for a game or something that's going on there. That's really important for the people who are taking part in it. But if we need 200 people in the town in a room, there's very few places we can do that. And that's one of the few at night. I'm not talking about, pushing people out during the daytime. And quite frankly, I was a little concerned, if you want to know the truth. So remember, my obligation is to right? And I can't hold people up. And and say, well, here's a candidate, and then have them publicly, right? This is like, if the hiring process, the vast majority of the world is something that takes place, very openly, but inside a business, but not outside. When somebody puts themselves out for a position, it's a little scary, but it's also, you're putting yourself a little bit, out there. And
What's that got to do with bringing?
well, I wasn't quite sure. I wasn't quite sure how to work that in, if you want to know, Diane. And I think Paul's search for some kind of new approach is great. I'm totally open to doing this. I thought, okay, remember that initially, okay, the feedback after the board was, we're not interested. And again, I'm sorry if I read it, if I took it too literally, but when I got an email saying we don't want a process, we just want a result. And I'm not going to talk about what the result is. I took that at face value. Okay, that said, made sure that a member of this committee was on that, was part of the meeting of the candidates with an expectation that that person would feedback. And I have every expectation that Paul.
A polite question to just come back and say, I've made a decision that might be out of the realm. It may take some understanding to understand what I'm doing. And to sit down and speak to people would eliminate a lot of problems. Now, wait a minute. I also want to tell you, because it's ticking me off, South Shore Social Services built this building, not the town of Cohasset. And I want you to remember that.
Social service thing, yes. And the town put $2 million into this building.
I don't give it. They didn't build it.
But you're right. And the town put $2 million in this building, and it's a resource for everyone. I celebrate that, right?
I just really, honestly, it's just a little nuance with me.
Okay, excuse
Got it.
me, one more thing, Chris. You wouldn't think of putting the children out of school for 3 days in a row, which has happened. They cut it down to only 2.
Voting.
To use the building for voting. We know exactly when the votes are going to be. It's not an emergency, but it's always the senior center. And we do it for, of course, for people to get their vaccinations, for public health. That hasn't been, it just seems that every time we turn around, we have to close down.
So that point we had to do one emergency time, just one. This building's always been the backup as an emergency, right? Because there's a perfect emergency backup if something went wrong. Except we've never.
Emergency.
Yeah, and that's what happened the last time. We had no other place to go. And we have to have elections. Elections are not optional things. Okay, they're not optional things, and we did it one time, and where are we having the next two elections? It's
Right.
St. Anthony's.
That's right.
And then we're going, and we did one at the schools, right? So we're actively exploring alternative sites. And the select board is like, hey, we really want to really continue to work with the schools, and they need like a year ahead. And then the nice thing is that after this cycle, there's only one election next year. There's the town election in the spring, there's no other elections.
And that's
So-
on a Saturday, so it's fine.
Right,
It's
right.
not
We're
an,
not gonna even gonna be here. The plan is to hopefully have that back at the school. So that we are working really hard to make sure that we have a primary alternative site that's not this one. And I'm sorry we had to go here. That said, it went really well, and there were a whole lot of people that got introduced to the center for the first time, which was great. At the same time, we also tried to make sure Meals on Wheels was still happening, and outreach was still happening. The in-session programs were happening, but the outreach was all still happening. And you've been heard. We don't want to have to come back and make this the regular site. We're committed to not making that the regular site.
Since it was brought up, Chris, we had 174 seniors displaced from their programs over that voting. So that's why we came to the town and said no more. But that's why.
And we don't want to, Rich, we don't want to displace people.
Okay.
It was a one-time thing.
I know.
And I hope we don't have to do it again. That's it. We still have to have elections, right? I mean, so.
I just think for everybody else, we do share. We had the after prom party here one year. Like we're dancing till 4 a.m. I mean, we share, but not during.
That's because we couldn't sit you down.
Yeah, I would point that out.
And that was a great example. When they came to me about coming here, I'm like, oh, I don't know, but let's check. And we did. And it was great, by the way. And we've done, as you said, the flu clinics have done here. During COVID, this was a critical place for the entire community. And during the day, by the way, this place is vibrant. People are doing everything from yoga to puzzles to getting their shots and just talking, right? I need to come here more on Mondays. Be good for me. I qualify there.
Chris, can you go
Wait a
back to
minute,
talking
I'm
about
sorry,
what you
someone-
selected?
One of the
I'm
seniors
sorry,
wanted to
go ahead.
speak.
Yeah, go ahead, son.
Go ahead. No, you. Well, I want to know why you are letting that girl good. She's doing very good here. I came here from Rhode Island and I think it's awful, terrible what you're doing to that girl. She's being wonderful over there. Why are you getting rid of her?
No one's being gotten,
Somebody-
we're not getting rid of anybody. We're not getting rid of it. Nobody's leaving. Nobody's being gotten rid of.
Yeah.
Nobody's getting rid of it. I'm glad you're here from Rhode Island, by the way. It's exciting. I'm glad you're here from Rhode Island.
Oh, we have somebody's
I don't
hand
like
raised
what
in the
you're doing.
audience.
That's terrible.
I'm the richest to share.
Oh,
Someone else wanted.
Rich,
over
I
here
have
wanted to
somebody in
speak.
the audience,
Didn't we
who-
just have that?
not in the audience,
other
in the, on the
Okay,
Zoom.
go
that
ahead.
wants-
Was there another comment?
Somebody on Zoom would like to speak?
Oh, sure.
I'm gonna promote them. Karen, you're
this one
being
over there.
promoted.
Don't, hold on a minute. There's someone on Zoom
Hold
who's
on.
gonna speak. Then you're
Hi.
next.
My question is regarding the Health and Human Services area that is now going to be the director's goal or mission. What does that mean for the missions of the senior centers direction now? Who is going to be overseeing the other areas that is not going to be taken care of by the director? Is it just, are
It's
we
not-
just,
it's not a zero-sum game, Karen. It's a plus game, right? So it's not like we're gonna not do the things we're doing now. We're gonna continue to do them. As Paul has far more eloquently explained than there's a different world that we're going into, and we just need to build that. And by the way, I don't know how that's gonna develop any more than anyone else does. I know that when this center was envisioned 12, 14 years ago, it's different than you thought. I mean, in a good way, right? You build it and then different things happen. And that's okay. It's good. In fact, no one thought about age and dementia friendly standard, getting those certifications or that kind of path initially. We're getting the center certified. Those are all great things.
so do we change our mission then? Does our mission?
No. The
No.
mission is to help people age in place. I mean, and what that means evolves over time. Again, I don't think there's any one answer to that.
I think the mission's the same. What's changing though is, right now we've with Nancy here, we had 4 staff members, and when we moved into this facility, the goal was to have 5 full-time staff members, and then each staff member had their area of expertise, and based on what those duties were, they would be augmented using the formula grant with a 19-hour person a week, or with a volunteer, depending on where that need is, right? So transportation is Liza, and we have volunteers like Bob Sylvia, who help with the van services and the 3 van drivers, right? So,
He's actually an employee.
right, so that's where we are. When Nancy put forth the age friendly dementia, and we also went after the senior center certification, that has all happened in the last couple of years. But what we haven't done is we haven't followed through with what does that mean? How do you maintain that? How do you continue to do things to keep that level in the community? So the new director is going to have to come up with a plan that is going to help us all decide what we do and who does it. Who's going to maintain it once you get it? What does being nationally certified mean? What do you do? How do you exercise it? How do you exploit that for grant purposes? So the new director is going to be doing that. Certainly Nancy would have been doing that as part of her moving forward on getting these in place for us. So I envision having a full-time social worker that's going to help us with these areas that we can maintain. Certainly with the assistant director's position and the outreach that they do is also part of that. The support with transportation and volunteer coordination, that's got to be strengthening up a little bit. We know that we have an employee who may retire in a year or 2. So we want to make sure that we have some training in place before. We're running off of an old software program, so we want to kind of upgrade a few things. And our operations person, he does a great job here. But he really relies a lot on the support staff of the volunteers. So that's what's critical for his job to succeed. So nothing is really changing there.
But so we're expecting a director who's never worked in a senior center, has 0 experience in a senior center with any of the areas that you just discussed, that Liza does, or Richard does, or even an assistant director does. I just feel as if she's being set up to fail, because who's going to teach this? Why to do their own job?
That's an HR question.
Yeah, I'd
Well-
like an answer.
Sure. So, when we're looking for any department head, we're looking for different skill sets. And being somebody who's already worked in a center is not necessarily, I'm talking to the screen and there's somebody there. It's important for, to have different skill sets, right? They don't necessarily need to be somebody who's worked in elder affairs department before. They just need to have the skill sets that we can be confident that they're going to succeed in that position. So, for example, we've made a lot of unconventional hires in town, and a lot of them have worked out really well. So again, it's about having the confidence that the person has the aptitude to learn the different things within the department, but also that they have the skill set that they need to be able to succeed. While it's nice to have somebody who's been in that type of role before, I don't think it's always necessary.
Let me ask you this, why would you possibly think about it when you look at something and at first glance, you see that this person never has a long-term employment anywhere? Nowhere.
One of it was 10 months.
So I'm gonna stop you, because we're not gonna discuss individual candidates.
No, this is overall. I'm not.
And what they do and do not have. It's not appropriate. This is an open public meeting.
No,
And
it's fine. I didn't say that. I said for anybody that applies for a job and you see that they literally have no experience.
Yeah, but you're
in the area.
insinuating a candidate, and we're not gonna talk about that. Sorry.
Well, I get back to the same, if we had had a better job description, I think we would have had a better candidate pool. I've never said that if we didn't find someone better than the person that we were supporting, if Kristen finds it, that I wouldn't support that person. Right. I just think that this was a not a well-done, process from start to finish.
And we
And
were
I'm
not,
very disappointed.
we were not advised
Right.
until last Monday at 4:30 in the afternoon that had officially happened. That's not working collegially with the board.
Well, again, that's not, any of that is on me, okay?
Well, okay.
And by the way, you know,
What-
I wanted, we wanted to roll this out in a very respectful way all around, okay? And again, I will accept any criticism for that. But that said, you know, we, having been here for 10 years, I'm comfortable standing up and saying, well, I have not done I make mistakes. We've done a lot of great stuff collaboratively here. We're in a vastly different place. We didn't have an HR department 10 years ago. We didn't have an IT department 10 years ago. This center would not have been possible 10 years ago. And the work that we do to center, the single biggest capital improvement in the town's budget this year is for this building. It's to replace the HVAC system.
Mhm.
So, and we have people that work this all the time. So this building has been a priority of ours, because of all the great work it does. And again, the additional staff, right? Kitchen coordinator, you know, I was quite frankly skeptical about it, and I came around, and I think it's a great idea, and I forget how important the element of the kitchen is for so many reasons. I mean, not because meals are central and nutrition is central. And I think that ad was great. Same with social work, right? When I started here 10 years ago, that was not on the radar screen. It's now on the radar screen, and it's become a more and more of a need, not just for us, for all around. And it's something we need to prioritize. And we will continue to do that. And you know, the programs, I mean, there are programs that are different today than they used to be. I think it's great. And I think there's going to be more partnership with REC and others to bring more diversity programs. We'd love to have more alternative exercise programs and health programs for folks. Because it just helps people live longer, healthier lives. I need to take more advantage of myself. So this works, as Paul said before, when people all pull together and respecting people's passions and respecting that reasonable people can look at the same situation and come to different conclusions. Totally appreciate that. I understand that, and I understand. I understand that and accept that. So that said, we're moving forward from here. I need to move forward from here to continue the great work. The alternative is there is no, the only other alternative is to be tearing down, and nobody wants to do that. I don't think anybody wants to do that. And I appreciate the passion. I really do, and I accept any criticism that you want to throw.
I have something I'd like to say. I haven't spoken yet.
I just want to, I want you to understand. I want to roll my literal sleeves and figurative sleeves up and work to make this place even better and to be as more responsive as the world changes around us.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to speak.
Right, Ed, Jim.
There's something that's not being spoken about at all here, and that is the reason that this room is full. There are some very intense feelings and emotions involved in this that have to be acknowledged. I wrote a letter to you directly, Chris, expressing my feelings about this. It was neither acknowledged as having been received nor responded to. Accepting criticism is different than acknowledging people's pain and hurt. This isn't something that couldn't have been anticipated. Anyone knew that replacing Diane would engender this kind of a response.
Yes.
The ham-handed way that it was dealt with has resulted in all these folks who are here today, all these people who think of this as a home away from home. You're replacing someone that's very important to them. Now, I think some very constructive ideas have been presented today, and I think we'll do well to think of what to do going forward. I don't think it makes any sense to continue to rehash what everybody's feeling so hurt about, but I do think it's important to acknowledge how clumsily this has been handled and has resulted in all these folks feeling like I'm leaving Monday Morning Cafe and I'm gonna go in that room and I'm gonna sit there and I want somebody to acknowledge how I feel. This is something that doesn't get addressed, and I think if we're to make any progress going forward, there's going to have to be a much better way of handling that kind of stuff.
Is it possible just to have a vote? Because I am here for Diane people, absolutely.
Well,
And
that's
I-
ship has sailed.
So there's this, again, we're respect, brother, I hear you, okay, and I feel you, I hear your passion. At the same time, this is not a replacement. The person who's being succeeded is Nancy LaFosse. Okay, I want to be clear about.
I get that.
Okay,
get
no,
that,
but you
but let's
don't.
not be stupid.
And I understand your passion. I understand what, it was a horrible loss. Nobody wanted her to go, right? I liked Nancy a lot, and she did a lot of great work here, right? And that's who's being succeeded. No one else is going anywhere. I want to
Oh,
be
yeah.
clear about that. No one else.
Oh,
You
please.
don't know that. for
Well,
sure.
well, look,
I don't know that.
I want to be clear that I've said to staff how important they all are and how important they are to the mission. I want them all to stay. Okay, I've said that directly, and Megan has said that directly, and I'll say that here publicly directly because it's important. That said, most certainly have seen people, you know, who I thought were wonderful, amazing staff members who've gone off to do other things in other communities. I mean, you know, and I can rattle through them. And they've gone
Do
on
you
to different
acknowledge my
exciting
point
things.
about the importance of people's feelings?
Oh, of course it is. And
Well, I'm
I
not
didn't,
getting that. Let me let you know that I'm not getting that.
I gotta tell you, I appreciate it. At the same time, I appreciate it. I do. And I'm acknowledging that. At the same time, I want you to acknowledge that that's not how I'm looking at this. Okay, it's about Nancy. It's about succeeding Nancy.
Well, as you said, it's not a zero-sum game. It's add. You can do both. You can acknowledge people's feelings.
I am. I'm saying, so I understand the passion. And again, that's why it's been really, it's been painful to have people react as if I'm not, there's been no intent and not even an imagination in my worst imagination that people would be like, you're hurting us. I never thought that. And again, so shame on me for not understanding or seeing that. I
Why didn't you
never
ask?
I did talk to people, and obviously I didn't get, I think that we all need to take a breath. I am, for sure. I can only speak for me. I can only take my own actions and say, let's go forward, okay? And I'm, look, I have always had someone at the table here, not always me, but there's always been folks from my office at the table here. And I,
No,
it's clear to me,
no.
it's
No.
clear to me,
No.
wait, let me finish. It's clear to me that I need to be here. I need to be here.
Thank you.
I need to be here. My mistake. I need to be here more. It's not enough. It's important to have someone else here. But it's not enough to have someone else here. And it hasn't just been me, it's been other folks too. So I need to do that. And by the way, I talked to Paul a couple of weeks ago about having an affirmative welcome in September. We had been talking about this. Okay, and that had been the plan, right? To come in, because you weren't planning to meet in August, to the best of my knowledge.
We weren't.
So the plan was to come in September and to have that engagement. We were planning for it. And then this all happened. And I got to tell you, it hit me out of left field. And I'm admitting that. So that's why I'm here. Okay. And again, I'm sorry if I came out hot before. It was definitely not my intention. And I'm optimistic about moving forward.
There's a
So-
lady in the back who's had a hand up for a long time.
I hate to be rude, but according to what I see, Chris, you are interviewing at other places too, which means you're leaving us with your vision for an individual and not the vision of the committee that was assigned to hire, assist with the hiring process. I don't want to get into all that, but I just want to say,
It's true.
I want to make sure that your vision doesn't sound like what the community wants, and certainly the search committee wants. And not adhering to, or not at least responding to the search committee, to me, is a huge administrative error. And how that's going to be resolved in the future with you as a manager, if you're here, is important, because we can't unring this bell apparently. So I just want to make sure that in the future, if there's a search committee, at least you give them the courtesy of
talking to them before you make a decision.
So, well, again, I just want to clarify something, and I'm only gonna clarify this one point. There was a process that involved some folks meeting with a group. That wasn't the end result. That was part of a longer and broader process. Happy to share it and talk about it more, but I don't want that false narrative to come out. That there was some process that got ignored. Is that not true? It's just not true. It's not true. People may not understand it or acknowledge it, and I understand that. That said, there was a much longer, much more elaborate process. There was no one element of it that was decisive. It was all a narrative and all of
You
it.
don't,
So
you don't consider a search committee.
I didn't have a search. There was no search committee. There was no search.
What was the name of the?
There was a search process.
Interview committee.
There were multiple stages of interviews that were both telephone screen and in person. Okay, that is a common thing that we do. Okay, because I don't want only my opinion at the table.
Then why didn't you come back to the board?
Really?
Or follow
I think
the,
we've talked.
So I think that, in kind of wrapping this up, just to kind of summarize where we are. To Jim's point, you know, I think over the next couple of months, there's going to be somewhat of a reconciliation period here where we try to understand the angst of the process, making sure that we still support the staff that are here, welcome the new staff that are coming on board. But to work closely with the town manager, the department heads, on understanding what we want, what we do here every week, and how their decisions impact us. They may not see it. They may see them making a simple decision, what's the big deal approach, not knowing that they're hurting our feelings, they're hurting our ability to want to do what we want to do. So I think we have to identify that and kind of work through that over the next couple of weeks. Chris has said in many, many words that he's sorry he hurt our feelings. So it's something like a Scrabble puzzle. I had to kind of pull it together to get that. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to find a remedy to the hiring practices. We're going to try and see if we can get some guardrails on it and understand what the proper hiring practices are for the town and if it's equally applied to directors or department heads. The third thing we're going to do is we're going to look for a remedy to where not one person makes the sole decision for a director of elder affairs. So those are things that, so that's going to take time. And I don't want to go to an annual town meeting and be the only one there. So we always have these rallying cries, but then when you get to the end of the rally, there's hardly anyone there. So if you want change, you need to support the change and you need to be there for when the change is being requested. So that's all I'm asking is we'll work with the select board to see what's allowed by law. We'll work with the town manager's office to see if it makes sense, because we certainly don't want to put something in place that has a negative effect on other departments, right? So we want to make sure that what we're trying to do here is preserve the ability for this board to have a substantial weighted opinion when it comes to selecting the department's head.
Thank you.
So that's where we need to go.
Another question, Chris. Department heads, what is the procedure now? Are you gonna go to open postings for every department head as you did for this one, but did not do for human resources and did not do for the library?
I'm not going to start going through a department by department or position by.
A town.
That's what I'm talking about, Rich. Okay, I am comfortable that every time that we've had a open position, we've taken assessment of the circumstances and we've found the best approach based on the circumstances. As Megan said, we've had some really amazing hires who are non-traditional, who've been outstanding. Because we have to be, the world's changed. People don't spend 20, 30 years in a job anymore. And they most certainly don't look at government first. I wish they did. Okay, right now, the biggest gap we have, public works, nobody wants to, what's coming to work for us? We can't find people with CDLs. Who's gonna do our plowing? I mean, we're desperate for that, and we've created creative solutions to try to come up with that. That's our, and it's getting harder and harder to find people who want to be police and firemen. You know, it's not the same way, and we've done, and with police, we've been really creative. I gotta give Chief Quigley all the credit. We've come up with a very creative approach, and we're doing really exciting things. Which is totally different than we used to. It used to be, you took a civil service test and you got picked. Doesn't work anymore. So we've gone an entirely different way. So
My question is, are you gonna do a public posting for all directors now? Department heads.
it depends on the circumstance.
Okay.
So,
Fine,
no,
fine, you
Um,
answered.
That's part of the process. When
Yeah.
we go through with the select board, we'll see what the practice is. That'll all come out in that process, yeah.
I might want to address that very briefly. Thank you all, by the way. And this is your meeting. And it's very good to listen to you. To Paul's point, it's, in my opinion, I think that there is a need to structure some portion of the town hiring similar to the fact that town manager appoints subject to the approval of the select, which gives, and the select board being, we're all elected, we listen to you, gives you the opportunity to go and properly address your elected officials. And if we decide to do something you don't like, probably not going to vote for us. That's one of the solutions. I do think it's important that the citizens have a means, and we're not in a government of 100 years ago. We have a lot of departments with a tremendous amount of power and control over everybody's day-to-day lives and our properties here in town. So I think it's probably time to figure out a way to enhance the public input in a meaningful way. Saying, well, we'll get together and we'll listen. No, there's got to be some actual votes taken and consequences. And where if somebody doesn't listen to you, you have the option and the person knows that you have the option to be replaced. So anyway, I just think that that's a good path forward because it's not just this position, although this is, in my opinion, an egregious betrayal, but that's my opinion. But there are other department heads, and your point was very well taken. Those department heads should have public scrutiny, and we should have an identifiable process. And to understand if it's a professional thing, the professional qualifications that are normally required for that position. And have it, in public, it's a public position. So anyway, again, thank you all for coming. I know it's quite a turnout. But what really is going to make a difference is what you vote for in the ballot box. And if there is some kind of solution that makes it to the town meeting, that you get to town meeting and show your support. Again, yes.
I just would like to say, because I have to get back to Cafe, that you talked about the difficulty in hiring people for snow plowing and all that. It's a little bit hard for me to understand when you had a person who was ready to segue right over, but yet we went out and tried to hire another person. And my concern is truly about these guys and our cafe and our yoga and our French and what's going to happen in the next bit of time with all this transition. Because we all know there's going to be a lot of transition in that office. And they really were the people who got things smoothed out and did their jobs. And they really all stuck to it and they made this grow like they did. And the volunteers and the board. So I really am concerned about that. We will welcome her. It's not her fault. She's walking and cleaning off it. And we will welcome her as we try anybody. But we had a way to segue right over to that position and not look at other people. And I feel bad about that, especially for our people.
Go ahead.
Yes, as an alum of this board, with the Council on Aging and a current water commissioner, I understand everything that's going on. And from my perspective now, I am looking forward to finding the 5th town accountant since I. The last one couldn't even be the CFO because she wasn't We are in my opinion, a little bit of a mess because we haven't gotten the mandated financial information according to our town bylaws that have been just, oh, we don't need that. So I hope and pray that this person who's coming in is semi-qualified and is going to meet your needs, not like what's been happening in other areas in town.
That's right.
Thank you. So is there any more open public comment?
And I have a question. Do you know how many seniors volunteer to keep this place humming?
Couple hundred.
Thank you.
So we have our next board meeting, which is Monday, September 9th. By that time, we hope the new pergola will be finished, so we can have our board meeting outside. You're all welcome to come and join us outside. That is also the day that Meg Stewart is her first day of work. They're going to see if she can come in the week before just to kind of get acclimated to the area and be introduced to people. But that is her first official day. The assistant director, Diane, who has been filling in for Nancy, will attend that meeting as well because she'll give us her director's report. And Meg will be there as well, so we can kind of have that transition of showing her how we do the director's reports and kind of move in that direction. So that's going to be very important to have the support. And I think being outside in the pergola, hopefully there's no rain, will work. And then for all of you that are here, this is your center. We are getting new vehicles, as you know. We're waiting on a very large transportation van that has more headroom that you can get in and out of, actually. So that won't be here till about mid-November. The other two white vans that we have that are hard to get in and out of are being sold. And the money for that is actually paying for the other vehicles. And of course, we have the minivan that everyone seems to like. So we have that here as well. We have a subcommittee, which Jim and Elaine Coyne are on. And that is to help us identify furnishings for under the pergola and perhaps a canopy and shades for the pergola. So we don't know what we need unless you tell us what we need, because we don't know what type of programming you want to have under the pergola. You know, we don't want to put furniture there that you can't move, and you want to do yoga under the pergola. Right? So we want to make sure that we could get the input from the people actually going to use it, rather than us sitting here deciding when the sun shines. Paul.
No,
Okay, yeah.
finish.
So those are the things that we have that are kind of the fun things that are going to happen over the next month or two. And, you know, that'll bring us into Columbus Day and Veterans Day coming up. So those are events that we usually celebrate here as well. So I ask that you continue interacting with Diane because she is still responsible for filling in for Nancy right now until September 9th. And she will continue to help all the way through, as she's still going to be the assistant director and outreach coordinator. Yeah, she's staying. She does it well. She wears advocacy on her sleeve. There's no one better at it. And we're going to need her to help us identify a full-time social worker, right? Because that's what she knows that role very, very well. So her input is going to be critical for us to help grow in that area.
Does anyone have any other comments?
I've listened to everybody today. I'm not speaking as a member of the select board, even though most of you showed up the other night, which was fantastic. What I'm seeing in this room is the processes are flawed. You know, to some degree, but I think working, you guys can come up with something that smooths it out. I have some experience in hiring, firing, and moving people along and picking people. And if I could just throw something on the table, it's transparency is key. At least to all the concerned stakeholders who are involved in the hiring process. I'm not going to cherry pick as to what went wrong, what got you all here, favoritism, personal opinions, and everything like that. I think that a lot of this could be negated if the communication was better. And that could be on both sides. I'm not throwing that just at Chris. I'm throwing that at everybody, however, because I'm not a stakeholder in it. But I think you guys can come together and come up with a process and a plan for hiring. I hope this lady coming in, and you guys have all said it, is gonna feel welcome. It's no fun, but I do want to also understand personal opinion. Going with someone that you care about, done their job. But I think you can fine tune it. It's just if I could throw any advice on the table, it's transparency, clear communication, and open-minded discussion and response time. To someone's interests or theories about what's going on in that process, within the confines of what you can divulge. And that'd be about it. Because you see a lot of concerned people here. You know them. So.
Thank you. Any other comments? I'll accept the motion.
Move to adjourn.
Have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. See you in September.